It's no secret that Ultimate Weapon has been slowly climbing its way to the #1 killer meta as perk. It provides great information on demand that can't be prevented by the usual stealth perks. It can be used in almost any situation. Just starting the game, throw open a locker and get to chasing. Just got it down, check the locker to see if any Nias are hiding in the bushes waiting to pounce on your eyeballs. Just got a hook? Great, now go find the next guy. Last survivor dragging out the game by hiding in a corner? You got 30 seconds of nerd alert, make it count. Oh yeah, it's also the only realistic counter to the most used survivor perk in the game, Windows of Opportunity, for some reason. Like, yeah, Mindbreaker and Third Seal technically apply blindness, but Mindbreakers is only when you're on a generator, and if you're running Third Seal regularly, you need to find a god because something is seriously wrong with your life. Anyways, I digress. A lot of people have started calling Ultimate Weapon overpowered, oppressive, or in some cases downright unhealthy for the game. And I'd like to respectfully disagree with 2 of the 3 claims. One thing I do agree with is that it can be very oppressive in certain niche scenarios. Like whenever somebody runs a Scream Pig build, it's not exactly fun to play against, I totally agree. But I don't think that Ultimate Weapon is at fault for this. It's just the next victim in an easily preventable spree that both behavior and the community are equally responsible for. It feels like almost every 6 months or so, some Scream perk becomes the subject of the community's ire until it's eventually nerfed, leaving the perk in a bad state and failing to address the underlying issue. It's like cutting the top edge off of a weed and praying that it'll just go away magically. What I'm talking about is the universal mechanic of Scream interrupting actions. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out why this is still in the game, after however many years it's been at this point. Almost every time a perk involves screaming, it gets nerfed because of this mechanic, when it's not the perk's fault that this mind-bogglingly bad mechanic is in the game. I understand this being in place for killer powers like Dr. Shock's or Pinhead's box, but I can't imagine why it has to apply to every scream. Making it to where screams caused by perks, both killer and survivor, don't interrupt actions would snip this at the bud and prevent any future problems with the screaming mechanic. And for anyone thinking that they can't implement a new second type of scream, they could just remove the disruption from the screaming entirely and add that disruption to something like, I don't know, the killer power that's causing it. Just saying. As for overpowered, I completely disagree. I think UWEP is, all things considered, surprisingly balanced. Unlike a lot of the other perks that have been putting out recently. First, it does have a direct counter perk in the form of Calm Spirit, which, unlike PH's Box and Dr. Shock's, who still get notified if they hit someone via the scoring system, even if they don't know exactly where because of Calm Spirit, the killer has no way of knowing if someone is hiding within their terror radius with Calm Spirit. The only problem with this is a fair bit of time ago, Behavior randomly decided to slap a downside onto Calm Spirit for literally no reason. I get the idea they were going for, with letting you go for side objectives slightly slower, for the benefit of doing it silently, but the fact that you can't somehow toggle this makes it just a flat nerf, because most of the time you're doing these things, being silent doesn't matter, because 1, you're across a map, where sound doesn't matter, or 2, like most totem spots, the killer can see you from practically halfway across the map, nullifying the point of breaking something silently and making it to where you really need that extra speed. The easy way to fix this is just to remove the weird debuff, but for those who are interested in a more effective rework to Calm Spirit, it just so happens I made a fairly short video on my ideal Calm Spirit rework, which will be linked in the description and end card if you're interested in seeing that. But even without Calm Spirit, there are some ways to mitigate the effect of UWEP, and the biggest of which is through the use of an ancient technique known as walking. Now, to pull off this tech, what you need to do is you need to unglue your left pinky finger from your shift key, and voila. Just like that, you can now walk away from wherever you screamed, leaving no trace of where you went, since you can only scream from UWEP every 90 seconds or so. All the time that you waste by walking away and making the killer search for you is free time that your teammates get to do gens, make distance, get an unheal, get a hook, crouch in a corner, etc., etc. As long as the map isn't rotten fields, you'd be surprised how effective this strategy of just walking away from wherever you screamed is. Especially if you run Fixated, which is just generally an amazing perk, both to learn scratch mark jukes and for all the stealth and chase benefits it gives you. If you're not into sneaking or in a rare area where you don't have much cover, what you can do instead is just to get a head start of running from the killer, which will make them want to chase you less. Especially considering 90% of the time, you're going to be on the edge of the terror radius when you scream, giving you ample time to run early, unless you see that they're chasing someone else, in which case you can probably stay where you are, but that comes down to game sense and just being able to understand the situation of the match and how it's going. Wait, hold on a minute. It almost sounds like Ultimate Weapon is a strong perk whose counterplay largely relies on understanding the game's mechanics, context clues, and general game sense. Huh. Now don't worry, I'm not going to turn around and hit everyone with a skill issue, But I will say I won't be complaining if more perks become counterable through understanding of game mechanics and not just break bones to disable perk. A strong perk whose biggest counter is good game sense and an understanding of current strategies for the game sounds a lot healthier than 90% of the perks in the game. But if you aren't convinced, let's talk about how it plays on the killer side. As before now, it's been mostly focused on the survivor side. Using UWEP on killer is quite simply incredible. It slashes any downtime to an almost minimum. While you do have to check the locker for your lost contact lens from time to time, which adds up faster than you'd think, it's almost always worth it from a fun factor alone, because doing so pretty much always results into getting to a chase rapidly. However, unlike other perks that extend the time that you spend in chase with one survivor, UWEP guides you into chasing several different survivors throughout the match, and it does so in a very healthy way. At its best, all UWEP does is pretty much guarantees that there will always be a chase going on, which, for 90% of the player base, is the most fun part of DBD. This constant chasing also helps killers build up natural pressure on survivors, which slows the game down without the need of regression and or gen blocking perks. I could honestly go on in a bit more detail, but truth be told, I'm trying to keep this video short as I'm working on a bigger video, and I just wanted to put something up to remind YouTube that yes, I am indeed still alive and interested in making content. If you have any questions or want a clarification or even just feel like having a friendly debate, feel free to ask in the comments below. I try my best to be as active as possible in there. But anyways, with all that said, happy hunting.